Alright, good morning. As you can see, there are no engines out here today. There is instead a pastry mat, and I am baking some pumpkin pies and decided to test the camera. I also have to clean up the engines and put them away to make room for other projects. So knowing that the generator is working means that I can put the toy engines on a box, or away rather, and do some other things with my project space, because I think I've mentioned before, I only have a single folding table to work on. So if I decide I'm working on engines, that is all the workspace I have, and I have to devote all of my workspace to the engines. And I need to stop and do a bit of sewing and other things, because I've been stacking up sewing projects while the table is not use. So I put the engines away, and I'm doing some baking, and then I'm going to have to do some sewing. But I am baking pies for a party, and thought it would be an opportunity to test the little bit of work I did on my camera, because remember when we watched, or last time I had the camera out, I had some problems with it. So I'm trying to figure out whether it's because the camera is old and dying, or because maybe the rechargeable batteries I have are starting to go, because I have those lithium rechargeable AA's, and those things are a very fancy little package with a lot of electronics in them, and they have a 3-volt, roughly 3-volt lithium battery inside, and a circuit to regulate it down to 1.5 volts to replace a standard AA battery. But also that circuitry has to protect the battery, the lithium battery inside, from being over discharged, because a lithium battery, if you discharge it too much, will reverse its charge really easily and then stop charging properly. So you have to make sure that lithium batteries are protected from over discharge. But that means that the circuit in there, instead of like a regular alkaline battery that's disposable, or even a standard like NiCad or other 1.2 volt rechargeable battery, instead of the voltage going from 1.5 or 1.2 down to like 1 volt for the circuitry inside the camera to detect the low batteries, the lithium ones, I don't know exactly, but as soon as they don't have voltage, they shut off and go to 0. So I don't know if they go from 1.5 down to like 1.2 or something to try and trigger low battery circuits, or if they just straight cut off. So anyhow, as you can see, I am making pies in these small disposable pie tins. These are actually deep ones, deeper than a standard like dessert pie, because they're for a meat pie, but they're the ones I have that have lids, so that when I transport them as, you know, individual or shareable pie sizes, they have a lid for folks to take home. And I bake a lot, but I'm certainly not a professional, so you can all like if you run across this and you bake a lot and have much better technique than me, good for you. Like you may have observed that I just roll my crust out real big and do a quick trim. I find it very tedious to do artwork on pies. It's like a lot of things in life. You can do that, but I choose not to, and I appreciate people that do all the delicate decorative work and lattice on pies, but I don't enjoy it, so I don't do it. And it turns out pies taste the same whether or not they're very pretty. Just like a lot of baked goods, so if you've ever thought about baking, yeah. And no one has ever said it doesn't have to be pretty to taste good. That's honestly one of my pet peeves about the internet culture around baking and cooking is that the shows make sure everything looks really, really good. And forget to mention that if it doesn't look good, it can still taste okay. Or taste very good, and so you should give it a shot. Because everybody I know that talks to me about how amazed they are that I cook and bake and stuff, that's their big hang-up usually, is that they see how fancy it turns out. But anyhow, like I said, this video is largely about testing my camera. So it's just sort of rambly and unplanned. But I did, like I said, I had a lot of camera issues the last time I tried to shoot, and I didn't do anything except thoroughly clean the battery contacts in my camera. And like I said, then once we got the battery contacts cleaned here, I'm just testing it, and I'm going to be marking the batteries as I use them, and then if I find one that seems to result in the camera having more issues, I might consider that battery to have gone bad. Because in my previous tests with these batteries in this camera, which the batteries are amazing, like their overall capacity is lower than regular alkaline, or even a lot of like other rechargeable batteries, say your nickel metal hydride or nickel cadmium. However, because they're lithium, they're delivering full voltage and current through the entire capacity range. So in a high drain thing like the camera, while it's doing video, basically is maximum battery drain. And when I was using regular alkaline batteries, I could only take like 30 or 45 minutes of video before the batteries would be too weak to sustain that high drain. But these lithium ones, because they can do full current through their entire charge cycle, they typically are good for an entire day of shooting. So days when I publish 2 or 3 hours of video of the engines running, that's just one set of these lithium rechargeable AA batteries that I have. But it would take, you know, an entire box of regular alkaline AA's to do that much shooting, since I'd be changing them every half hour or so. But on the other side of that, like I said, the thing where they reduce to zero, basically, the lithium ion ones, instead of having a voltage drop for the low battery circuit to detect. Once they're done, the camera just sort of shuts off suddenly. So, alright, I got 3 pie crusts. We will stop the camera and I will I guess switch up and fill these. Okay, I'm gonna bake these on a tray because I don't want to make too big a mess. And I stirred up my filling and let it sit so I could, while I rolled these out. And I've got three others that I rolled out before I started the camera, and I did filling for a double 9-inch pie and obviously did not make enough, so I guess instead of mixing more filling up, dip out of the other pies to even this out. And alright, there. Those look about even. I get those in the oven, and I guess it's going to be practicing with my video editing to get these 3 videos stashed together, because I'm going to put these in the oven and then grab the cookbook and talk about the cookbook I used, since I'm testing the camera and don't really have a plan. Okay, well, cookbook I use, because basically all recipes turn out to come from a lot of cookbooks. It's the pie I grew up eating, and my family never made a secret about it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Grandma's special recipe, but Grandma's special recipe was out of a Betty Crocker cookbook. This is the 9th edition, 9th printing, 1st edition from 1950. I think it's kind of cool with all the Kitchen of Tomorrow stuff in the front. Old cookbooks are neat, but plain old pumpkin pie. I also think it's cute. There's a note from the 1950 copyright. This is a rich brown spicy pie, because this version uses brown sugar and a lot of pumpkin pie spices. If you want a lighter color and milder flavor, use all white sugar and omit the cloves. So I'm going to bake those up, and I'm trying to think, the other thing this cookbook has is lots of tips about serving things, but it also has diagrams of kitchen utensils, because this was also for teaching people how to cook. And my mom said it was her textbook in college as well, not just a cookbook everybody had. And there's a section on dressing game animals, but I don't know where that is. I didn't bookmark it. So, well, the camera seemed to work the whole time I was baking this morning, so maybe you'll get to watch me sew later, because I'll probably test the camera while I'm sewing, mostly because I want to make sure it's working while I'm doing the engines, because I don't have a lot of breaks with the engines to be checking on the camera. Alright, well, I almost forgot to show the final pies after they came out of the oven here, but as you can see, they baked up nicely. The crust shrank down from the top there, so they retracted into the crust down to the level of the filling, which is kind of normal. Like I said, I don't worry about making the prettiest crust as long as it contains everything. And those are going to be real tasty and conveniently, you know, a good size for a single person to eat or to share with one other person. So be able to give them to friends and whatnot at the party. So, yeah, I think they turned out pretty good. They didn't have the camera, or I didn't have the camera set up, so didn't get to see that they were domed up and then they're sinking in as they cool, but that happens to all custard pies. So, yeah. Alright. Well, I remembered to do this, and now I'm done with the baking video for today.